How do you feel about the jurors you got here?
So talking about the Karen Reed case, this case goes back to a situation where there was a woman who was at a bar with her significant other and dropped him off at her friend's house or at his friend's house. And later he was found dead in the snow. So this case is about trying to get to the bottom of how he ended up there. The prosecution's case is that Karen Reed was intoxicated when she left the bar. She dropped the Stroll Keep off and hit him with her car, sped off and left him there to die in the snow, and that's what they have to prove. My name is Dante Mills. I am a criminal and civil trial lawyer at Mills Legal Law Firm, and I'm a professor, a trial advocacy professor at the Temple University School of Law. In the first trial, Karen Reed put on a defense, and it lasted 9 weeks, the trial. The prosecution put their case on, the defense put their side in, and after 5 days, the jury determined that they could not come back with the verdict. They couldn't decide. And we have to know that in a criminal case, the jury has to have a unanimous verdict. Everybody has to be in agreement, and that could not happen after 5 days. The judge attempted to push the jury to a resolution, but ultimately someone wasn't going to budge, and there was no way they could come to an unanimous decision, so it was declared a mistrial. You're going to be looking for people who, if you're the prosecution, are simply rule followers. And it's interesting when you talk about jury selection, you get certain information, who they work for, who their family is, their income levels, things like that, where you attempt to see what kind of person that juror is. But the prosecution is going to say they're simply asking everybody to follow the law and that they're going to check off the requirements for what has to go into the case. And they're looking for a jury who can follow the law no matter what. Because the concern in this case is it's been in the news and it's been talked about by a lot of people. It's been sensationalized. So the defense is going to be trying to essentially put on a show and distract from the law and just say that Ms. Reed is being maliciously prosecuted, that they're targeting her, and that she is not the one who committed this crime, but they're covering up for the people who did. And when you have that kind of a circus around it, you want people that's going to be very, very open-minded. So if you're the defense in this case, you're looking for jurors who are open-minded, who are open to whether or not the law seems to be consistent, if they can believe that there was some tampering or there was some cover-up, and for them to ignore the law even if it's in front of their face. Yeah, so jury selection generally will last. In this particular case, I know they brought in 2,000 jurors, and they do plan on jury selection taking a while, much longer than a typical case. When I pick a jury in a case without any fanfare or being out in the public, it takes usually a day to 3 days. But in this type of case where you have not only the media coverage, but you have a documentary or that was put out that millions of people have watched, it's going to be difficult to find jurors who don't know anything about this case or already haven't made up their minds because there's so much information out there. So that's the screening process that's going to take some time. Looking at this case kind of from the outside, looking in, what you want to look out for are the witnesses that's going to be called. It's important to know that she did not testify in her first trial, so she may not testify this case. We may not hear from Karen Reed as to what she believes happened that night. So it's going to come from other witnesses, people that were inside of the house that Mr. O'Keefe was dropped off at, people that were at the bar, investigators that investigated this case, that may have been somewhere disciplined or even one fired after this. So there's going to be people who come in and talk about this case that have slight connections to it, and as people looking at it, you want to hear what they're going to say. You want to see if their testimony is going to be consistent with the first trial, because this is the second trial. So we have the benefit of knowing what these witnesses talked about the first time and kind of holding their feet to that. And if they change their story, why? Why is it different now? Why is some testimony different? Is your memory off? Is were you influenced or impacted somehow that you want to change your testimony? So the focus is going to be on those witnesses coming in. This is going to be a tough case for the prosecution because the defense had the ability to see the prosecution's entire case before. And when they did, the prosecution did not get a guilty verdict. So now you have a second attempt where the prosecution will tailor some of their arguments, but the defense now had months and a long time to prepare, knowing what those arguments are going to be. So the defense, I believe, is going to be tighter. And it should be tighter this second go around. We also know after the first trial, some things happened. One of the officers that was disciplined in this case said some disparaging things during the investigation about Karen Reed.
So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
And sir, what is it that you were referring to there, or why would you text that?
These were, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. Is talking about the homeowner, Mr. Albert. I had mentioned the compelling evidence against Miss Reed at this point indicated that Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death. The rest of the unprofessional and regrettable comments are something I'm not proud of, and I shouldn't have wrote in a private or any type of setting.
And whenever something like that happens, you look and see, was there a reason why this officer or any other officers targeted Karen Reed? If he didn't like her, if he had some bad things to say about her, if he believed that she was guilty before the evidence showed that, and he decided to investigate in a way that kind of pointed towards her being guilty, then the jury can take that into consideration. And I don't think an investigation should happen that way. You shouldn't decide who your target is or who the guilty party you believe is and then investigate to make that so. You should do it the other way. Do a clean investigation and follow the lead to wherever it leads to. And that's why that officer was disciplined. It's negative information for the prosecution. When the prosecution didn't win the first time, it's going to make it harder for them to win the second time. So they have a long road ahead of them. I applaud them for wanting to get some kind of justice if they believe Ms. Reed did in fact commit this crime, that they want to get justice for this victim and his family. So they are prosecuting her again, but it's not going to be an easy task. So the prosecution in the second case, they're going to have to kind of tighten their approach because it was not successful the first time.
The uncontrovertible fact is you have been lied to in this courtroom. And your job is to make sure you don't ever look the other way. One lie begets another, and it's a malignancy that grows over time. And that, folks, is how a cover-up is born.
They know part of what the defense is going to be, although the defense can change. And in fact, say, for example, if Ms. Reed does testify, then it's a completely different scenario that the prosecution is faced with, and they won't know that until they put their case in. So on their case, I think they have to focus on maybe the damage to the vehicle that shows that the impact could have happened where the vehicle did strike Mr. O'Keefe. They may have to focus on just the nature of their relationship where it showed that she was, in fact, that they were on the outs and that they were, in fact, they had heated instances between them before. They may want to really highlight that to show that she is someone capable of doing this, because I think in part of the first trial, it was, why would she go to this extreme when there was no other evidence of, physical abuse or things like that? Why would she go from even argument level to hitting someone with the car and leaving them to die in the snow? So they're going to have to fill in those gaps to show there was a reason why her anger was elevated so much, and that she was in fact capable of doing it and did do it because of the proof with the damage to the vehicle, where his body landed, where his body was positioned on the street. Those things just kind of hammering home that this was possible to happen by the hands of Ms. Reed. Kind of a sideshow to this murder trial is one of the journalists or someone in the community who was making a lot of posts. His name is Turtle Boy. A lot of people have heard of him and how he reached out to potential witnesses in this case. And the judge is going to have to decide how much of that comes in. If he's going to allow evidence to show that Turtle Boy or that Karen Reed through Turtle Boy tried to influence or impact the witnesses in what they were going to testify to, or either to scare them away from testifying at all. That's going to be critical to a jury hearing this if they hear or they're allowed to hear that either Turtle Boy through Karen Reed or Turtle Boy on his own was able to manipulate witnesses and that will impact whether or not they trust or believe these witnesses or some of these witnesses that will come in. So this seems to be kind of a side issue, but it's really not, because if evidence comes out that Karen Reed was trying to impact witnesses, I think the jury will take that very seriously and believe that the only reason you would try to do that is if you have something to hide. So this is going to be an interesting component to this case. We'll see how much of that comes in, but Turtle Boy's name will come up, I think, pretty often. I think the prosecution is going to try to hammer that name into the jury's mind and make them believe that either he himself or through Karen Reed was trying to impact these witnesses so that they can either testify falsely or be scared from testifying at all. I do know that the court wants to move this case forward. It's been going on for a long time, and they want to bring resolution to this matter for Mr. O'Keefe's family. He's a victim no matter what, no matter who in fact was the cause of his death. It's still a family that's mourning. So the court is going to want to get this done right away, but you can't really schedule it out until you have a jury, and that's when the judge will know, okay, we're ready to begin. Everybody will line up their witnesses, and the case will start.